And he talked about how he had to chase her out of the trailer, that he tackled her while he was trying to tase her. He numbed his own arm. Then he was on top of her. He didn't know what to do. That he was starting to, like, his mind was melting down. It was just all a frenzy, and he started stabbing her. He pulled out his knife and started stabbing her. And it turns out that Cora Twombly saw that. She said she saw a motion that he was making of, like, with his arms going up and down. She assumed he was stabbing her. And then, as he discussed this, as he talked about it, he said that that Veronica, and this is the thing that just, like, this really was awful, that there was no more blinking, and that the light, that the light came out of her eyes, and he fell to the ground, and he said that Grandma Tiffany, we said Tiffany, was walking around in a circle laughing, and it was the fullest laugh he had ever heard. And that's when Veronica's dad screamed out the word bitch about a Tiffany. The whole courtroom was sobbing. It got so loud as Paul tried to continue. They tried to continue on with his testimony. The judge stopped the proceedings, and he really took control of the courtroom. All the lawyers went up to the bench. Then he asked them to step back. They had a conference of really quick. And the judge said, "This is an American courtroom. These defendants are entitled to due process, just as the state is entitled to it." And he cautioned and told everyone that was sobbing. I mean, it really had become a cacophony of just, like, total grief in there. I've never heard anything like it.
Oh my
And he
gosh.
told them to step outside if they couldn't, manage to control themselves, but nobody did leave.
Did they talk at all about motive? I mean, obviously they're pinning this somewhat on Grandma Tiffany, and she seemed like the ringleader from all the reporting that we've done of God's Misfits and of the group. But did they talk at all about why they were convinced by her to do this?
Cora kind of scoffed at the God's Misfits thing, saying that it really was just something Cole said about how they didn't fit in anywhere and that they were God's Misfits. But I'm not convinced about that testimony yet. Yes, there was a motive. They talked about how Tiffany had repeatedly, Paul Grice actually went on and on about this, that she told him she had evidence of the sexual abuse of Veronica's children by her brother. This is something that we had reported earlier, that they had a video where the brother confessed to the sexual abuse, and that Tad had a huge document, 30-page document, that he kept locked in a safe at his house. And he said, "I never asked to see anything, and that was my mistake." But that it was something that she preyed upon the hate in his heart, for having been abused as a child as well, physically, is what he alluded to. And that he did it, and he took responsibility for it. But Cora also talked about how it was heartbreaking and that she was sure the abuse was going to continue because the court system had not helped at all, except for having visitation. I mean, there was visitation with somebody, a supervisor. That's what Jilian Kelley was doing there.
So the fact, Allison, that these two have now turned and are testifying what seems like on behalf of the prosecution and telling the whole story of what they say happened, do we know, there's got to be a deal, right? Like, what's the motivation
Oh, yeah,
now?
there were two. They both had a deal, and they had to mention it. Paul Grice took a deal so that he wouldn't have to he could escape the death penalty. And Cora Twombly has a suspended sentence. She'll serve at least 30 years in court.
Okay.
Sorry. The other thing I wanted to say is this whole thing about Jilian Kelley. It turns out that Grice also killed her, that he killed her in the in the trailer on his way to the burial site, that she looked like she was alive. And Grice said her eyelids were fluttering, and that he thought she's going to wake up alive in that freezer and it will be horrifying. So, sort of intimating that it was out of pity, he stabbed her in the neck.
Yeah, and I remember, oh my God,
3 times.
I remember seeing the horse trailer. We went out there where they allegedly buried the freezer. I mean, if you can see this land, this is like right out of a horror movie. It's awful. So this was day one of the testimony. What can we? I mean, this is apparently going to go on for 2 more days. What else? It's already all this shocking stuff today. What do you think is going to happen tomorrow?
Well, I think it was shocking because we saw that different people weren't having preliminary hearings, and we didn't know that the reason Paul Grice's preliminary hearing was he wanted to go solo was because he had turned against everybody. Tomorrow, we're going to hear cross-examination of Paul Grice, so he's going to be somebody's going to, for the other defense attorneys, for the defendants that are in there, Cole and Tad. It's kind of interesting. It looks like Tiffany already declined. She actually waived her right to a preliminary hearing and also a speedy trial. So she didn't sit through today. She was whisked out at the very beginning. Tomorrow, I think we're going to hear about where the burial site, and we're going to hear from the owner of that land who leased it to Tad. And we're going to hear about what went down there. And I think it's going to be just as upsetting for the families. I've covered a lot of trials, and I know you have too. I've never seen anything like today.
Thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your screen. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.